Hello everyone! When you start soap making, sooner or later you will want to make your own recipes. And for calculating the amount of lye and water you need in relation to the oils you want to use, it is a great idea to use a soap calculator. SoapHack is one of them, and in this video I will show you how to use it. I'm Sue from Sue & Soap, and let's grab a cup of coffee and go over to the laptop. You have to go to soapcalc.net and then you click on Recipe Calculator. And there are a lot of things which can be a little bit overwhelming or confusing at the first look, but it's actually pretty easy to use this calculator. So just ignore all these advertisers on the side. You can see these numbers here in these boxes, and you just go through starting by number 1 up to number 6. And when you click on these boxes, you also get a little help page which gives you some additional information about this part of the calculation. On number 1, you have to choose if you want to use sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide is for solid soap bars, and if you want to make liquid soap, you would use potassium hydroxide, which is a KOH. Sodium hydroxide is NaOH. We use sodium hydroxide here for this example. Next, you have to fill in the amount of oil you want to use. So for this example, let's use 1000 gram. This is the maximum amount I use for my 5-pound mold. I even often use just 750 gram. Next, you need to choose the amount of water. And the default number here is 38% of the weight of oils, which is very high. So with 1000 grams of oils, this would be 380 grams of water. With so much water, your batter would stay very liquid, which is good for swirls, but it also will be a very soft soap bar and it will need a longer time for curing. When you use less water, things can happen quicker because the lye concentration is higher, so the batter thickens up faster and the soap bar doesn't need so long for curing. But the benefit of this is that the soap bar will be a little bit more creamy. I normally use between 25 and 30% in my recipes, so let's go here with 28%. The next is Superfat, which is a light discount, and this is a kind of safety number which prevents the soap being too lye heavy and make it more skin safe. I wouldn't go under 5% here, I normally use about 6%. The higher you go, the more moisturizing the soap will be, but it also will be less bubbly, so just try it out for yourself what works best for you. The fragrance here is the amount of fragrance in relation to the amount of oil. So this would be 31 grams of fragrance oil in 1 kilogram of oils, which is 1000 grams. That's 3.1%. That's a very light smell in the cured soap. If you want to use more, you can do this. It also depends on which fragrance oil you use. Normally you can get some information about how much to use from the supplier. On number 5, soap qualities and fatty acids, you get a lot of additional information about the soap. This first part gives you some guidelines about how your soap will be when it's cured, and when you go over the descriptions, there will pop up this green info box. And this one tells you in which range the number should be. For starting soap making, this is a good orientation. On the one column, you can see the numbers for the specific oils you clicked on in the list here, and the all column gives you an overview of the oil mixture you put into the recipe list on the right side. So for example, when I click on avocado butter, I wanted to click on avocado butter, you can see these numbers here changed, and these numbers are specific for avocado butter. And they will change when I click on another fat like aloe butter. The lower part shows you the composition of the fatty acids. They are responsible for the properties of the oils and fats. It's just a little background information. Every oil consists of different fatty acids. So when you click on an oil, and let's stay with aloe butter, you can see it consists mainly of lauric acid, and it also has some myristic and palmitic and so on. If you want to know more about fatty acids, you can click on these info buttons, which is a link to Wikipedia. On this section here, you combine the oils you want to use. So you scroll through the list and double click on the oil so it will get into the recipe list. So let's do this for an example recipe. So let's use some olive oil and some mango butter and coconut oil. And when you use coconut oil, you normally go with the 76 degree. That's the normal coconut oil you can buy everywhere. Then let's use some castor oil. And next I put in the amount of oil I want to use in percentage. You can also put in the total amount in gram, or if you choose pounds or ounces here, it will change, so you can also use these ones. But I like to go with percentage because it makes it easier to upsize or downsize the recipe. So let's use 50% of olive oil and 10% of mango seed butter, 30% of coconut oil, and 10% castor oil. And then you click on calculate recipe, and you can see that all these numbers here are filled in, so these are calculated for the recipe. And then you click on multiple tabs and view or print recipe. And then you get on this recipe page. So this page you would print. You can click here on print recipe and you can print it out. On the recipe page we now have some additional information. You can also see the exact amount of water you need to use and the amount of sodium hydroxide. A very good point I always look on is the ratio of saturated and unsaturated fats. If the number on the left side is a lot higher than 50, the soap batter will probably thicken very quick, so this would not be a good recipe for making swirls. The other way around, when the amount of the unsaturated fats is higher than the saturated, the batter will stay longer fluid, which is great for making complex designs. So if you are looking for a recipe with which you can swirl, you should always have a look on these numbers. I always try to keep it either 50-50 or a higher amount of unsaturated fats. The recipe page also has all the information of the soap quality we saw on the calculate page, and it has a big area where you can put in personal notes. So for example, I always write on the left side when I add citric acid or sodium lactate or kaolin clay and so on. And on the right side, I only write the date when I want to make this soap, and I handwrite some notes when making the soap, like if it thickened very quick or the date when I unmold it and if the bar is too soft or such things. So I write everything down what seems to be important for me, and that makes it easier for me to make the soap again or just change a small thing to optimize the recipe. So you see, this calculator gives you a lot of information, and if you have any questions left, leave them down in the comments and I try to answer them. So I hope you could learn something today and see you next time. Bye!